next section now, we are going to talk about people, we're going to talk about technology, we're going to talk about sustainability, and we're also going to talk about standards. So, first up, we've got the awesome Steve Gladwin, and he's going to talk about the power to the people.
Good morning, everybody. If I asked you to name the 3 biggest risks facing the FM sector over the next decade, maybe some people would say resilience, security. Technology is a risk and it's also an opportunity. ESG, perhaps. Maybe even cost. But none of these, to me, is the real risk. The real risk is whether we're developing people fast enough to keep up. We can have the most advanced buildings in the world, but without capable people, those buildings won't deliver the strategy, value, or resilience. My name is Steve Gladwin, as Simone said, and I've been in the FM sector for almost 35 years. I was the one that was sent demo tapes in Australia. And I have to admit, I did listen to some of those demo tapes. Maybe my career could have gone a different way, but it didn't. I didn't fall into FM. I built on 10 years of transferable skills in construction and building engineering services. And many of you will have similar stories. And for all those people here, and we've heard it this morning, who say that you fell into FM, just like I used to say that, I would encourage you to change the narrative and consider how your transferable skills have enabled you to navigate the challenges, the complexities, and the multifaceted profession of workplace and facilities management. Today, I say I have a portfolio career. It sounds rather flash, doesn't it? I spend some of my time consulting for Nodus Solutions with a fantastic team, some of who are here in the audience today. I do CPD training, continuing professional development training, largely for the IWFM. That's 2-day type of training. And I also lecture. I'm the subject matter advisor for degree apprenticeships at the University of Greater Manchester. And I've witnessed something remarkable that supports my theory, I believe, of why people development provides the decisive advantage. And let me say now, I love people that get degrees, but there's also a thing called the University of Hard Knocks and the School of Life. But I'll also explain why I think degree apprenticeships are a good way to go. But this remarkable thing that I've seen happen in the last couple of years is that AI has fundamentally changed learners' ability to present knowledge. 2 years ago, I had assignments that were submitted that I used to read on a Sunday afternoon and just laugh at some of the language. I used to look at some of the presentation skills and think, actually, we need to upskill here. Assignments that used to be poorly structured are now immaculate, formatting perfect, references are all in the right place, polished academic tone. But when it comes to the personal reflection side of it, the emotional intelligence, and when it comes to the decision-making based on analysis of data, risk, complex scenarios, the human judgment part, AI is far less helpful at the moment. And that's the point. And I tell my students they should embrace AI and use it as a sparring partner or co-pilot, just the same that I was doing when I was doing my MBA. I would go to the library and search through contents pages and index pages of books. AI elevates capable people. It doesn't replace the need for capability. Just as a world-class boxer needs a sparring partner, the human brain determines the outcome. And that's the point I want to explore with you today. I want to start off with why people development is the decisive advantage. Then I want to go on to how people actually learn. And then I want to talk about what skills we need in the future for the FM. And finally, the imperative for learning institutions, training providers, professional bodies, and facility managers, whether you're client side, service provider side, or consultants like me, why we need to have structured learning programs that supplement just classroom learning with work-based projects, real-life scenarios, and then practical skills. FM, as we've heard from Sarah's presentation, has fundamentally shifted over the last 5 years from operational delivery to strategic value creation. We all know that. We're now dealing with the workplace experience, ESG experience, organisational resilience, hybrid working, data-driven decisions. And that means people capability is now the limiting factor, not technology, but I think it's people. FM is no longer judged merely on whether the lights stay on. FM is judged whether the environment works for the people. And layered on top of this is the shift in the AI revolution. AI-enabled building systems, predictive maintenance, digital twins. The world we operate in is changing faster than our capability pipelines. Here's the paradox. The more intelligent our buildings become, the more advanced the human judgment requirement must become. Knowledge is no longer the power. The development of the people is the power, and that's the decisive advantage. And let's look at the facts. And this is why we need to do more in the terms of our people. 86% of FMers report a significant skills gap. Nearly 40% of facilities managers are over 55. Look around at the demographics in the audience. Not at the moment, by the way. 78% of FM want more skills to advance. We have weak succession pipelines. Multiply with transformation, we don't have the right skills to lead. But the capability gap that we don't talk about enough is the thin succession lines, the ageing experience, the over-reliance on go-to people, the learning models that are built for stability, not change. And our struggle to bring young people into the industry. I wish I had more time to talk about this huge problem that we've got, that we haven't got young people coming into the industry. Sarah made a great point about the social mobility. I also see people with A-levels, with degrees, that are not given the opportunity to get into the FM sector. And as Simone said, there's 200 people in the audience. Not only do I want you to go out to schools and talk about it like Simone suggested, but actually encourage your children, your children's friends to get into FM. And it's with great pride that I say that I've encouraged my two daughters to get into FM. They're both sitting in the audience today, and I know that they'll get great skills and great life stories from this profession as I have. The other thing that I want to mention is nearly 40% of job skills will change over the next decade. So there's some of the reasons why we need to focus on people development, but I would go on. Upskilling improves performance, confidence, retention. I say to my students on the degree programme, stick with it. It's 2.5 years. Even if you don't get the piece of paper at the end of it, this will give you confidence. Structured development can boost productivity significantly and reduce staff turnover. High development cultures show higher trust, faster decision making and fewer escalations. And if I reflect personally, I wasn't born with a growth mindset. I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. I didn't have the right school tie. I didn't have any tie. I was born in East London. I wasn't born analytical and confident. These were developed skills. And someone in the audience asked, how do you shape the leader? Don't know where that gentleman is. Well, I can tell you, I don't believe leaders are born. I believe leaders are shaped. I believe leaders learn. I tell my daughters, everything you see about me is a learnt skill. I'm an introvert by background. I hate public speaking. It's a learnt skill. I grew up lacking confidence. It's a learnt skill. And I learnt all of that through the workplace, through having great mentors, great bosses, bad bosses. You learn as much from a bad boss as you do a good boss, in my view. But this is what we need to develop into people. And capability development builds people, not just competencies. So they are the compelling reasons why we need to focus on people development. And now I want to just talk about how people learn. And the research is clear on this. Most learning doesn't actually happen in the classroom. People learn through experience, people learn through exposure, responsibility, the social learning. When I do my 2-day IWFM training, I spend a lot of time getting people into groups to actually tackle problems. Everyone says we learn from other people on those courses. And the fact is, the visible 10%, courses, training, certifications, is the tip of the iceberg. The real development, the 90%, happens below the waterline. Capability is built in the workplace, not just the classroom. And that's the blind spot. Organisations mostly fund the 10%. They measure the 10%, and they leave the 90% unmanaged. And it's no wonder, in my view, that capability gaps persist. We are not investing in the part below the waterline that gives us the biggest advantage. And when I look at how people learn, back in 1956, Benjamin Bloom, an educational psychologist, came up with what educators now know as Bloom's taxonomy. It tells us that cognition has levels. People remember, then you step up, and then you start understanding, then you apply, then you evaluate, then you can create. And when I look at AI, and when I look at students' work, when I look at what I actually do in AI, and I love it, I have to admit, it is fantastic at remembering. It analyses, it detects patterns. Which means FM professionals now need to rise to the top tiers: evaluation, ethical trade-offs, creative problem solving. Never has there been more of a need for the FM capability to shift from the operator to the interpreter and the decision architect. And the thing is, you can't just jump from understanding to then evaluating. And although the course that I lecture on at University of Greater Manchester, it's a degree apprenticeship programme, I tell my students, I'm not here to talk about FM. I'm not here to teach you about FM. I'm here to teach you how to be more strategic, to analyse, to critique, to debate. But to do that, we have to get the base knowledge there. This week, we've started a new module. We're doing total quality management. We are doing process flowcharts. Whoever said Mel didn't like well, yesterday I got them all developing a process flowchart for making a cup of tea. We might laugh at that, but the variance that we had in 4 groups. And then I said, look, I don't actually drink tea. I drink green tea, if anything. But what it demonstrated was there was a variance in everything. But actually, we need to get that base understanding before we can jump up to being strategic leaders and thinkers. Carol Dweck, in her research, shows that a growth mindset, believing capability can be developed, is critical during times of change. As I said, I wasn't born with a growth mindset, but truly now I believe in lifelong learning. I believe that I'll never stop learning. And in the FM, this is crucial. If people believe I'm not digital, I'm not analytical, that's not my world, I come from this background, I come from that background, I'm just a technical person. Then transformation stalls before it even begins. The challenge is partly technical, but it's fundamentally cultural. Going back to Mel Bohr's point about experiential learning, Kolb, another guru in the education sector, talked about experience, reflection, conceptual understanding, experimentation, lessons learned. And some of you in high-performing teams will actually be doing this. You'll be setting stretch projects, you'll be doing post-incident reviews, peer problem solving, lessons learned, toolbox talks. This is where the capability grows, but organisations rarely design this intentionally. If AI is transforming work, learning has to be embedded in the work. It cannot sit on the sidelines. So that's why and how. What do we need over the next 5 years? Well, according to the World Economic Forum, analytical thinking remains the most critical skill, valued by 70% of the employers. But I know you just can't get someone from school and make them overnight analytical. That has to come through people development. And there's a whole other subject I will talk about there. People don't want to do that because it's an investment, it takes time. Human skills, resilience, adaptability, leadership and social influence are increasingly prioritised according to the World Economic Forum. AI, we'll talk about that a lot today. 39% of the current job skills are expected to change or become obsolete. Most employers are responding to 85% plan to upskill staff, but I don't think we're doing it quick enough, particularly not in the FM sector. That's all from the World Economic Forum. But I can cluster the skills that we need into 4 key areas. Human leadership in complex environments, systems thinking, digital judgment. The Harvard Business Review have published a number of papers over the last 6 months talking about work slop. That's the term they're using now for some AI-produced information, work slop. In other words, it's sloppy. Even in some of the assignments that I receive, fantastic presentation, but fundamentally wrong. Fundamentally wrong, it's sloppy. All of these 4 areas are all related to the people. When I talk about human leadership, judgment, ethical reasoning, influence without authority. You know, we sometimes have this old-fashioned view that it's the hierarchical situation, that the leaders at the top make the decisions. But I truly believe people at all levels of the organisation should know how to influence without authority. If anyone's seen the Simon Sinek video, starting off with why, that's exactly what I've done today. Started off with the why. People don't buy what you make or what you deliver, they buy why you do it. Seeing the whole eco-workplace system, understanding the unintended consequences, interpreting and making decisions based on variables. These are all of the skills that we need in the future. Digital judgment. The danger is FM will not use AI. We will use AI. My students are using AI. Last year I got told as a lecturer I'm not allowed to use AI, and I laughed. I said, the students are going to use it. But it's that we trust it without understanding it. That's the challenge. And then this sustainable self-leadership. Net zero is not a technical challenge to me. It's a leadership challenge. So what do we need to do differently? Well, the organisations that will advance, whether you're service provider side or client side, won't leave it to chance. They'll design it. They'll design stretch into their roles and projects. They'll create safe to fail spaces, what Mel Ball talked about in her opening remarks. They will build mentoring, coaching, communities of practice. Again, if people do 2-day training sessions, whether it's through Xenon, whether it's through IWFM, I don't mind who they do it with, but they will create networks through that 2-day training. They will build knowledge that's transferable. And hopefully that will transfer up the Bloom's taxonomy of knowledge to be more strategic. If AI handles automation, if it analyses routine decisions, we need to make sure that we are deliberately developing evaluation capability, creative problem solving, ethical reasoning and adaptability, because that's now where the value sits. The power and the decisive advantage resides with the people. So just before I wrap up in a few minutes, I just want to ask you to ponder these questions. Who are you intentionally developing as your future successor? Where does capability grow in your organisations? And who owns it? If your development model has not changed in a decade, why would your outcomes change? And if your people left tomorrow, what capability would leave with them? The future of FM will be built by people, not just by technology. Smart buildings are useless without smart buildings. People development is not a support function, it's the strategy. Leaders decide whether capability grows by design or by accident. And that's why I say power to the people. Now, I don't have a problem with the IWFM professional qualifications. I think they're fantastic, but it has to be structured. When I think people do 2-day courses, whether it's with IWFM or, like I say, Xenon or Quadrelect, it's structured. But I'm a firm believer in degree apprenticeships. I done an apprenticeship when I was 16, and I've encouraged both daughters to, whether they do apprenticeships, to learn. I struggle with the concept that young people start their working life with 60, 70 grand debt. I really struggle with that. So my view of the world is get young people on apprenticeships. Use it or lose it. We've already seen the government cut out level 7 apprenticeships. But there are still apprenticeships out there, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 6. That's the programme that I do at the University of Greater Manchester. But whether it's at University of Greater Manchester or the only other university doing degree apprenticeships at level 6, which is the University of Gloucester, use it or lose it. And we could debate for longer about whether service providers need to provide more training or in-house service providers. But there was a lot of service providers in the room, I get that. But out of the 75 students that have gone through the University of Bolton programme, only 3 service providers. I don't get it. It doesn't cost you anything. You're paying the levy, yet 3 service providers out of 75. I get the reasons why. I'm an ex-service provider. If you're not billing work out, its margins are too tough. I get all of that. But I would implore all of you to think about how you're developing your people. And the final things I would say, in the words of Citizen Smith, and I'm showing my age now, yeah. Power to the people. It's a decisive advantage. Thank you very much.